Hey everyone, and welcome as we continue our study through the New Testament. And we're looking at the 250 events of the life of Jesus. And we're doing this by going through the Gospels chronologically and looking at things in as best as we can tell through the timeline of how they would have happened in Jesus's ministry. And right now we're still in the Sermon on the Mount, and we're still in Matthew 5. And the Sermon on the Mount goes from Matthew 5 to Matthew 7. So we're going to be in this in the next couple of weeks. But today we're looking at Jesus teaching about vows. And this is going to be a shorter lesson today, but it's from Matthew 5:33 through 37. And he says, you know, you've heard your ancestors of old say, hey, you must not break your vows, right? You must carry out vows that you make to the Lord. And he says, I'd say you this, and this is what he said. You have heard it. He keeps repeating this pattern. You have heard it said, but I say, and he has the authority to do this. He's God. He says, don't make any vows, right? Don't say by heaven, because heaven is God's throne. You know, that's we don't need to be making a vow or swearing by heaven. He says, don't say by earth, because that the earth is his footstool, right? And he says, don't say by Jerusalem, for Jerusalem is the great city, or a city of the great king. And don't even say by my head, for you can't turn one hair white or black. And he says, basically, do this. Just be simple with it. Let your yes be yes and your no be no, and anything beyond that is from the evil one. He says, because and this is what, Jesus is emphasizing here, telling the truth, right? And people were breaking their vows and using sacred language, like very casually and carelessly. They were swearing by Jerusalem, they were swearing by heaven, they were swearing by, you know the earth, that they were going to do something, or vowing to do something by and they were breaking these vows. And so these were common in Jesus's time, but he told them, he said, don't use them. Don't use them. Just let your yes be yes. Let your word be enough. You can see James 5:12. He talks about that as well. And so the one thing we need to look at is this shouldn't be a universal condemnation of, oaths, or taking a vow or an oath, right? In all circumstances, because we take vows for marriage. We just talked about marriage in being committed in the last 2 days, right? So that's a vow that you take to God, that you're going to do something. So, and God himself, right? God himself makes vows and promises. We can see that, I got some notes in there. In Hebrews 6 talks about it. In Acts 2, there's vows. What Christ here is talking about, what he's forbidding, is, these flippant, profane, careless use of oaths in everyday speech. And that's what he's talking about. And in that culture, such oaths were often employed for deceptive purpose. It would be used for trickery, or to deceive people, or to kind of make a promise that you were going to do something that you had no intention of doing, but they would do it to excuse me, they would do that to make it appear as though you were going to do something. People do that today, right? I swear I'm going to do, and it's like, no, it's like, just be honest, right? If you can do something, do it. If you can't do something, say no, and do that. And so we see then, and Jesus talks about this, they would swear by heaven, earth, Jerusalem, their own heads, right? And usually they wouldn't do it by God, right? Because they wouldn't want to do that. They're trying to avoid divine judgment in doing that. But it was all, he kind of, Jesus points out, this was all God's creation anyways, that you're talking about making these vows. So Jesus is just suggesting that our speech should be as if we're under an oath to tell the truth, right? Just yes be yes, no be no, tell the truth all the time. And you don't have to go through and make all these elaborate vows and these elaborate promises, and do all those things, you know, and we can see it today. We know it today. We've known people, we see people who, you know, they'll be, they'll promise to do something, they'll do it in an elaborate way, they'll elaborate promise, elaborate vow, and more than likely they're not going to do it, right? But there's a lot of people out there that just say, if they say, hey, I'll do this for you, you don't have to get a promise. You don't have to get, you don't even have to get a handshake, because you know that they're going to do it. And that's the kind of people that Jesus is calling us to be. He's saying, look, if you say you're going to do something, do it. If you can't do it, and you know you can't do it, say you can't do it. Say, no, I can't. And that's it. Just be truthful. Don't make promises you can't keep. And that's all Jesus is talking about here in this. And so we don't need to take it beyond that, right? But that's the simple message that Jesus is laying out here. So again, this was a lot shorter than what most of our other ones have been, but it's just a simple, yet let your truth be your truth, right? If you can do it, yes. If you can't, no. You don't have to go elaborate on it. You don't have to go all out and promise all kinds of things. just be honest. And that's what we're called to be anyways. As Christians, we're called to be honest in everything we do. And so we should do this with vows or with anything else, with any promise, with anything that we say we're going to do. We don't have to make a bunch of vows around it. We just make a bunch of promises around it. All we got to do is do it. Let our word be our word. Again, I appreciate everyone for watching these videos. If it's been useful, please share them. If you haven't had a chance to yet, please subscribe to our channel. And as always, I appreciate you for watching.